My name is Elena. I am 26 years old. I spent 5 long years working 3 hard jobs just to buy a diamond ring for another woman. I did not know it at that time. I truly thought I was building a future for my only family. Today, I will tell you how the man I called my soulmate turned me into a stranger for a rich girl's smile. I felt my hands shaking as I remembered the cold pain. Please, listen closely to my story. Leo and I grew up together in a cold and lonely orphanage. We were 2 orphans with nothing in this world but each other. I clearly remember how we shared a single piece of dry bread every night. I often whispered to myself, "He is my only family, and I will protect him forever." He was my best friend and the only person I loved. When he got a chance to study in England, I felt a mix of joy and fear. I decided to give up my university dream so I could work to pay for his tuition and living costs. For 5 long years, I worked 3 jobs at a high-end restaurant. My hands became rough and red because of the strong chemicals and constant cleaning. I often looked at my cracked skin and thought, this is the price for Leo's future. I wanted him to have a better life than mine. I even saved money for an entire month to buy him an expensive wool suit. I remember how I skipped many meals just to afford that suit. I wanted him to feel confident and look like a real gentleman in London. Last week, Leo called me and sounded very stressed. He said he needed $5,000 for a very important graduation project. I knew that was all the money I had left in my bank account. However, I did not hesitate to send him my blood and tears money. I told myself that this was the final sacrifice for our beautiful future. I felt so happy because I thought he was coming home to marry me. I truly believed that the man I loved was working hard for our small family. I had no idea he was planning a betrayal. It was a very busy Saturday night at the restaurant. I was exhausted, but I had to stay professional. My manager told me that a special guest was in the VIP room. I took a deep breath and smoothed my apron. I wanted to finish my work quickly because I missed Leo so much. I thought he was still in England, working on his big graduation project. I knew he was busy, so I didn't want to disturb him. I whispered to myself, "Just a few more weeks, Elena. Then, you will be together." I felt a sense of peace when I looked at the small, cheap ring on my finger. Leo bought it for me before he left 5 years ago. I knew we were poor, but that ring was a symbol of our promise. I felt so proud of him. He was a smart boy from the orphanage who was finally making his dreams come true. I felt happy to be the woman who supported him. I imagined our future house and our quiet life together. These thoughts made my hard work feel easy. I carried the heavy tray toward the VIP room. I could hear soft violin music and the sound of people laughing. When I opened the door, the room was full of beautiful white roses. I saw a man sitting at the table. He was pouring wine very skillfully for a young woman. That man was wearing the expensive wool suit I bought for him. I felt my heart skip a beat. It was Leo. My Leo was right here in this city. He was sitting with Clara, a very rich girl I often saw in magazines. Leo was being so witty and charming. He was listening to Clara with a bright smile on his face. He looked like a real, self-made gentleman. He told her stories about his hard life in London. He made it sound like he was a hero who worked alone. I stood there, and my hands were shaking violently. The wine glasses on my tray made a loud noise. I felt like the floor was disappearing under my feet. I knew every line of his face, and I knew he was lying to her. I walked toward their table like a ghost. I could not believe my eyes. My heart was pounding against my chest so hard it hurt. I reached the table and looked directly at him. My voice was trembling when I spoke. I said, "Leo, my love, why are you here?" I was so confused and scared. I asked him again, "Why are you not in London? You told me you were finishing your final project." I felt a cold sweat on my forehead. Leo looked up, and for a moment, he looked terrified. But then, his expression changed into something I didn't recognize. Leo stood up slowly. His face turned pale for a second, but then he put on a polite smile. It was the same charming smile he used on Clara. I felt like I was in a very bad dream. He looked at Clara and said, "I am so sorry, dear. This is Elena. She is just an old acquaintance from the orphanage. She is a bit confused today." I felt like someone had hit me in the face. An acquaintance? I thought he was my husband-to-be. I stood there, and my heart felt cold and heavy. Leo did not wait for me to speak. He moved very fast. He grabbed my arm and pulled me away to a dark corner of the room. He turned his back to Clara, so she could not see his face. He looked into my eyes, and his voice was a low whisper. "Elena, please, listen to me," he said. "This woman is a very important business partner. Her father can help me get a great job after I graduate. Please, do not say anything. Do not ruin this for us. Go outside and wait for me. I will come home and explain everything tonight. You must trust me." He squeezed my hand, but it did not feel like love. It felt like he was trying to control me. I took a deep breath, and my chest felt very tight. My hands were shaking uncontrollably, and I felt a cold sweat on my neck. I stood there in the shadows for a long moment, silent and broken. Part of me wanted to believe him, because he was my only family. We grew up together, and I loved him more than my own life. But another part of me felt that something was very wrong. I looked at his expensive suit, and then at the rich girl at the table. I knew his voice, and I knew his polished lies. I whispered to myself, "Is this really about a job, Leo?" I felt a deep, dark suspicion growing in my heart. I did not move. I just stood there, breathing heavily, trying to understand the pain in my soul. I knew my life was about to change forever. I did not leave the room. My feet were stuck to the floor like lead. I am a senior waitress, and I have served thousands of tables in 5 years. My eyes began to scan the table as they always do. I saw the gold-rimmed menu. In this restaurant, that menu is only for the grand proposal package. I saw the bottle of vintage 1995 wine. We only open that for engagements. Then, I saw the white peonies and the small velvet box near Clara's hand. I felt a cold realization hit my heart. I whispered to myself, "This is not a business meeting. This is a proposal." I quickly did the math in my head. I knew the price of the wine, the food, and the special music. The total cost was $4,950. My heart stopped. It was almost exactly $5,000. It was the same amount of money I sent to Leo last week. I thought that money was for his final project in London. I thought I was helping his future career, but he was using my blood and tears to buy a diamond dream for another woman. I felt a deep, burning pain in my chest. Leo saw me standing there, and he became very angry. He opened his expensive wallet and took out a few small dollar bills. He stuffed them into my apron pocket with a cruel look. "Just go away now," he hissed. "Do not ruin my important night. Go buy yourself something nice and leave us alone." The money felt like fire against my skin. I looked at the small bills on the floor. Then, I looked at his beautiful wool suit. I remembered how many extra shifts I worked to afford that suit for him. I felt my soul breaking into a million pieces. Suddenly, the violin started playing the song Perfect. It was a sweet and romantic melody, but for me, it sounded like the end of the world. My face was covered in hot tears, and I took a deep, shaky sigh. I stepped forward, and I slapped Leo across the face with all my strength. My palm hit the soft wool of his suit. I felt a strange pain because even my slap was touching the money I spent on him. The whole restaurant went silent. I screamed in pure agony. "A friend? A graduation project? Leo, you used my $5,000 to buy a ring for her? Look at my rough red hands. I worked 5 years to feed you, and today you treat me like a stranger? How could you be so heartless?" After the slap, the room became deathly quiet. I stood there for a few seconds, feeling the fire in my palm. I took a deep, slow breath and forced myself to be calm. I felt the hot tears drying on my face. I was no longer the broken girl from the orphanage. I looked at Clara, and my voice was finally steady and strong. I knew I had the power now. Miss Clara, I said clearly. I am sorry for the drama, but you should know the truth. This successful gentleman is a fraud. He is using a credit card that belongs to me. He used my money to buy your flowers, your wine, and that ring. He has no career. He has no money of his own. And most importantly, he has no heart. Leo's face turned from red to a ghostly white. I saw the fear in his eyes, and I knew he was defeated. I reached out and picked up the pause machine from the table. My fingers were cold but very steady. I also opened the banking app on my phone. I whispered to myself, I am finally free from your lies, Leo. I did not look at him with love anymore. I only felt pity. He was just a small man hiding behind my hard work. I was the one who built his world, and I was the one who would take it away. I am canceling the payment right now, I told him. I pressed the buttons on my phone and blocked my card forever. Leo, enjoy this meal. It is the last expensive thing you will ever have. From this moment, you are back to being a poor orphan with nothing. You wanted to be a king, but you forgot that I was the one who paid for your throne. I felt a strange sense of peace in my soul. I turned my back on him and waited for the final collapse. The restaurant manager walked into the room. He looked at the credit card machine and then at Leo. I am sorry, sir, he said loudly. The card is declined. You cannot pay for this bill. Leo's face turned a dark, angry red, and he started shaking violently. All his polite manners disappeared in an instant. He no longer looked like a successful man. He looked like a scared, caught liar. I felt a strange mix of pity and cold satisfaction as I watched his world collapse. Clara stood up slowly, looking at the wine Leo had poured. Suddenly, she picked up her glass and threw the red wine directly into Leo's face. I hate being poor, she said in a freezing voice. But I hate cowards and frauds even more. Leo sat there with wine dripping from his hair onto the suit I had worked so hard to buy. I knew his fake dream was over. Clara walked toward him and chat. She slapped him even harder than I did. She then took a napkin and wiped her hand as if she had touched something filthy. A rotten chopstick dreaming of a golden tray, Clara hissed at him. Did you think a fake suit could make you a gentleman? You are just a beggar with a stolen heart. 2 security guards entered and grabbed Leo by the arms. Since he had no money to pay the bill, they pulled him out of the restaurant in front of everyone. I took a deep, shaky breath and felt the heavy weight finally lifting off my soul. I stood tall, watching the man I once loved disappear into the dark night. Clara turned to me, and her eyes were no longer arrogant. She looked at me with real respect for the first time. You have a good eye for suits, she said softly, and you have a very strong heart. Do not waste either of them on trash like him again. You deserve so much better. She gave me a small nod and walked out of the VIP room. I stood in the quiet room alone and whispered to myself, it is finally over. I am free, and I will never let anyone treat me like this again. I went to the locker room and sat down in the quiet dark. I slowly took off my dirty apron and threw it in the trash. I looked at my rough, red hands for a long time. They were tired, but they were strong. I whispered to myself, no more. For 5 years, these hands worked to feed a man who did not love me. They worked to buy a suit for a heartless liar. I felt a great sense of peace, because I knew I was done with him. From this day on, my hands will only work for my own future. I will never let anyone take my kindness for granted again. I put on my coat and walked out of the restaurant with my head held high. I did not look back at the VIP room. I did not care where Leo went. I knew I had lost the only person I once called my family, but I also knew I had saved my own life from a terrible trap. I walked into the night, and for the first time in 5 years, I was truly free. My future was finally my own, and I felt ready for a new beginning. As I sit here today, I realize a very important lesson. We must never build a bridge for someone who is willing to let us drown. I gave everything to Leo, but he only saw me as a way to get what he wanted. I learned that true love should always be a beautiful partnership between 2 people. It is not a transaction where one person gives and the other only takes. My kindness is a precious gift, not a carpet for others to walk on. You must always value yourself before you try to save someone else. Sometimes, you may think that sacrifice is exactly the same thing as love. This is a common mistake that many people make in their relationships. You have to remember that a healthy connection requires a balance between giving and receiving. First, it is very important to set clear financial boundaries with the people you love. You should protect your hard-earned money and your bank account to ensure your own safety. Second, you must always invest in yourself before you invest in anyone else. Your own dreams, education, and growth are your most valuable assets. Finally, you should learn to trust your professional instincts and your life experience. Your mind often notices small, strange details that your heart wants to ignore. By following these simple steps, you can protect your future from people who only want to take advantage of your kindness. So, tell me, if you were Clara, would you leave Leo too? Please comment, Elena, if you agree with her choice. I really want to read your thoughts. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about strength and truth. Thank you for staying with me until the end.